So, Jimmy, my boy, who are you going to choose? Pit? Who the fuck is Pit?
Seriously? You don't know shit about Pit?
Look at him, it looks like someone made Cupid grow up!
Well, Pit is fucking awesome.
Alright then, smart guy, tell me about his games.
Well, they were... You know you're fucking evil.
I drink alone. Yeah, with nobody else.
I'm drunk, I'm angry, and I hate games that try to do too much. Today, I'm talking about Kid Icarus.
Kid Icarus was released for the NES in February of 1987. It starred Pit, a bold, confident angel.
Wait a minute, wasn't he that annoying little prick from Captain N?
Shove that Icarus up your assicus! Captain and the Game Master knew nothing about video games. Otherwise, Simon Belmont would not have been some cowardly, narcissistic Jay Leno mountain climber!
Whoa, touchy!
Despite now having a cult following, the original Kid Icarus gained alright to less than great reviews.
But this game scores a lot less in my book.
Before I start, I will give a minor bit of sympathy to Kid Icarus. As I mentioned once before, this game was originally on the Famicom Disk System and originally had a save feature. But like many of the games imported from the Disk System, except for The Legend of Zelda, its save system was replaced with a long password system.
What makes this even more ludicrous is that both in Japan and the US, Kid Icarus was released after Zelda. So if Nintendo knew how to do it, why didn't they?
However, this is where my sympathy ends because this game is as annoying as hell. First off, though figuring out the controls is easy enough, Pit does not come to a complete halt when you release the control pad, just like Mega Man in Mega Man 2. And this can cause a problem when you accidentally... And that's another problem. Falling off of the screen is very easy, especially with this vertical scrolling pit of death that follows you. For some reason, everything that was just below you suddenly disappears.
And it's not like lava is rising up and consuming the stage. This is a result of bad programming!
What makes this more unusual is the existence of games such as Gyromite and Castlevania, which were released before Kid Icarus, that allow backtracking. So why couldn't a company design their game to do the same thing on a system that they themselves created? Speaking of graphical issues, this game has a good tendency of slowdown. I'm betting the processing power of the Famicom Disk System was better than the NES, but that still does not excuse the issue. Level design is another issue, and it becomes more and more apparent as the game continues. It requires the most precise jumps onto teeny-tiny platforms, combined with the bad controls that I mentioned before, requiring the jumps to be even more precise than they have to be.
Slippery controls, difficult jumps, graphical slowdown, a password system. Can it get any worse? Yes. Yes, it can.
Like many games of its kind, this game has power-ups, but getting them isn't as easy. Some of the items have to be bought at the store with the souls of your fallen foes. And extending your life requires that your overall score be high enough at the end of a stage. That's simple enough, but increasing the strength of your weapon requires that you gain enough of an invisible point value and then enter a certain type of room, all within the same stage, all because this invisible value will reset to 0 at the end of the stage. This means that you might just have to farm to gain enough points so that you don't get an empty room when you enter one of these doors. But on top of that, there are training chambers where you can gain very powerful weapons, but only if you withstand an onslaught of many enemies for a certain amount of time. This is a sadistic way to test the player, but the prizes are very useful. When you can use them, you can only use the weapon if your current HP is high enough. And on top of it all, none of these weapons work in the dungeons. At least so I'm told.
Enduring a slew of enemies to get a weapon that I'm barely allowed to use. What kind of drugs were the designers on when they thought that up?
Finally, let's talk about the dungeons. These are the last stages of a level, and the first thing that you notice is that the hub layout has completely changed.
This is very poor design. There is no reason why the hub layout should change, even if it does look good.
The trouble is only beginning. There are many statues in these dungeons that you need to break open with a hammer. But how do you obtain these hammers? Either you have to buy them at the shop, or in the previous levels, you have to collect a harp that will temporarily transform all enemies that you encounter into hammers, and then collect those before the power of the harp wears off, at which time the hammers will suddenly disappear.
And after all this effort, what are you rewarded with?
A flying soldier that is supposed to help you fight the boss, except that they are useless when they die from one hit. To add to this difficulty, the in-game map absolutely sucks. You can collect a piece of paper that adds a bunch of squares to the menu screen, a torch that will tell you which room you are in, and a pencil that will mark any room that you've been in after you found it. And the map will not show how each room is connected. The maps in The Legend of Zelda were more helpful than this, and it came out before Kid Icarus.
It's really bad when you're better off making your own map in a notebook rather than relying on the one that's in the fucking game.
The icing on the cake is the eggplant wizards that you will encounter on your way to the boss. If you get hit once with one of their projectiles, you turn into an eggplant with feet that can't do anything but walk around until you find a hospital room that will only help you if you are cursed. The eggplant wizards are, by far, the most annoying enemy ever, just by this single fact.
With all of these problems, it's a wonder how this game even got a cult following. Or even a sequel.
That's right, in November of 1991, Kid Icarus received a sequel for the Game Boy called Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters. This game has been praised for being less punishing and a lot better than its predecessor. Tighter controls, the elimination of the vertical scrolling screen of death, the addition of a save system, the addition of extra lives, and better use of the items in the dungeon stages, even though the map still isn't as good as in the Zelda games, it is a huge improvement over its NES counterpart.
And considering that you can find used copies of this game for about $5 to $25 on websites like eBay and Amazon.com, it's very kind to the wallet. Now, new versions on the other hand, it's over 300.
That's too fucking much. Gah! A third game in the series, called Kid Icarus Uprising, will be released for the Nintendo 3DS in 2012.
If the world doesn't end before then.
Am I looking forward to this release? Fuck no! And there's several reasons for that. First, this game is not a platformer like the other ones, but is instead some form of shooter.
And instead of putting the shooter on the Wii, where it would be great, they put it on the 3DS!
Plus, I've learned that Pit will now be voiced by Johnny Young Bosch. He was fine as Adam the Black Power Ranger, and as Vash at Stampede, and he's fine to do the voices of generic depressed anime characters. But after hearing his generic voice out of the mouth of my main man Zero in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I don't want him to replace Pit's voice actor from Brawl, Lonnie Minella.
First Rouge the Bat and now Pit. What next? Lisa Ortiz will replace her as Ivy in Soul Calibur 5?
But that's not the only thing. The inclusion of this dark character, the multiplayer mode, which I bet is as great as the one in Star Fox 64 3D, and the use of this weird card battle system, I have a feeling that Uprising may be Pit's downfall.
I'm Jimmy Daniels, reminding you to always form your own opinion. And remember, drink responsibly.
So, still happy that you chose Pit?
I don't know. Still happy you chose Ganondorf?
Oh, fuck you!
I drink alone. Yeah, with nobody else. Yeah, you know when I drink alone, I prefer to be by myself.